Good morning, everyone. My name is David Park. I'm a vice president of the bank's legal department and a member of the bank's internal senior diversity advisory board. On behalf of the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston and in place of Marquise Benton, vice president and director of the bank's Office of Diversity and Inclusion and OMWI, I want to extend a warm welcome to all of you to the Capital and Minority Business Capacity Building Conference, sponsored by the Greater New England Minority Supplier Development Council. Marquise could not be here today since he's attending the inaugural meeting of the Federal Reserve at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors of the Directors of the newly established Office of Minority and Women Inclusion of all the Federal Reserve banks. We are very fortunate to have a very distinguished group of speakers, panelists, and participants today. I'm pleased to introduce two opening speakers, Lynn Brown and David Hinson. Lynn Brown is an executive vice president at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. She's responsible for the bank's regional and community outreach, public information and employee communications, as well as its community development and economic education activities. An economist, Dr. Brown was the bank's director of research from 1993 to 2001 and was responsible for the bank's scholarly research and monetary policy analysis. Her personal research has emphasized economic developments in New England. Dr. Brown co-authored the bank's influential 1992 study of discrimination in mortgage lending. She received a bachelor's degree in economics from the University of Western Ontario and a doctorate in economics at MIT. As the National Director of the Minority Business Development Agency, David Hinson oversees 5 regional offices and a network of 48 minority business centers, providing services to promote growth and competitiveness of minority businesses. The overall mission of MBDA is to achieve economic parity for the minority business community. Mr. Hinson is uniquely qualified to lead Minority Business Development Agency. Prior to joining the agency, Mr. Hinson was president and CEO of Wealth Management Network, a multi-million-dollar independent financial advisory firm. Prior to starting Wealth Management Network, Mr. Hinson managed a 10-state sales region as Director of Advisory Services for InvestNet Asset Management, a $70 billion financial advisory firm. In addition, Mr. Hinson previously held a variety of senior-level positions at Bank of America, Morgan Stanley and Company, First Chicago, which is now J.P. Morgan Chase, and the Village Foundation. Mr. Hinson received an MBA in finance from the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School and a bachelor's degree in insurance and finance with honors from Howard University in Washington, D.C. Mr. Hinson is a member of a number of civic organizations, including the Council of Urban Professionals in New York. In addition, he has provided financial commentary for CNN, Fox News Channel, and CBS News, and has written financial columns for the Network Journal, Black Enterprise Magazine, and Essence Magazine. At this time, I also want to acknowledge Dr. Fred McKinney, President of the Greater New England Minority Supply Development Council, for his hard work in organizing this conference. Please join me in welcoming Lynn Brown and David Hinson. First, Lynn.
Well, it's a great pleasure to have the opportunity to kick off this meeting, and I'm delighted to see that we really do have a full house. So I'm very, very pleased to be participating in this program. I'm going to do a couple of things today. First, I'm going to try and give you a very quick overview of economic conditions nationally and in New England. Then, if time permits, I'm going to say a few words about some of the Boston Fed's activities in the city of Springfield, Massachusetts, and particularly some findings from recent research on Latino entrepreneurs in Springfield. But first, sort of what's going on nationally. It's actually been quite a while, June 2009, since the end of what is now being called the Great Recession. It's called the Great Recession because the drop in output and the increase in unemployment were greater than in any other recession of the post-World War II period. And also the duration was longer. But although sort of the recession is officially deemed to have ended in June 2009, we still have an unemployment rate of 9%, and so the recovery has been painfully slow, as I'm sure many of you are aware. Fortunately, though, there are some signs that the recovery is gaining some traction, and in particular, the pace of output growth picked up in the fourth quarter of last year. Notably, consumption, which is about 70% of output, grew at a pretty vigorous rate. In particular, consumer spending, especially on motor vehicles and other consumer durables, was pretty robust. It's not really clear what went right. A lot of things sort of improved a little bit, but not really so much as to make that big a difference. For example, consumer sentiment picked up, but consumer sentiment is still pretty low, almost at recession levels. We did see the stock market improve, but housing prices were soft, so it's not clear what happened to overall wealth. A number of people basically think that the consumers just got tired of being so cautious, and in particular those who, if you look at sort of the pattern of retail sales by chain and so forth, if you look at that, people sort of think that maybe consumers that came through the recession pretty well, but who've been fairly cautious in their spending, either because they were nervous or because they didn't want to appear ostentatious, that they simply sort of opened their wallet. But in any event, there is a sense more of greater optimism now, and most forecasters have increased their forecast for 2011. The Federal Reserve is no exception. Chairman Bernanke was testifying just recently, and his testimony was accompanied by what's called the Monetary Policy Report, which contains the forecasts, doesn't attribute them to anyone in particular, but it contains the forecasts of all the Federal Open Market Committee participants, the Reserve Bank presidents, and the governors, and they are now forecasting GDP growth of 3.5% to 4% for 2001 or 2011, whereas back in November they were forecasting only 3 to 3.5%. So they're definitely seeing things picking up. Unfortunately, the job situation is expected to improve only slowly, the drop in the January unemployment rate notwithstanding. Now we'll actually know, maybe there's more to it than we thought. It seems that drop in the unemployment rate was due in large part to shrinkage in the labor force, but actually we should find out. We'll have actually the February unemployment rate, I think tomorrow, or if not tomorrow, the following week. So unfortunately, we expect, though, that unemployment rates are going to remain high for quite some time. And this situation is very worrisome because such high unemployment rates persisting over literally years mean that some individuals are in danger of seeing their skills atrophy. Many young people, it is a lucky teen today that has a job. Only fewer than 30% of white teenagers have jobs. For minority teens, fewer than 20% of teens have jobs. So here, this situation is persisting for quite some time. So you really wonder, how are young people going to gain the skills they need to compete in the workforce? Now, New England's performance in the Great Recession and the recovery has actually been somewhat stronger than nationally, although the experience of the various New England states is quite different. Rhode Island has actually fared much worse than the rest of New England and the nation. Employment fell earlier and the fall has been deeper. For a time, Rhode Island had the dubious distinction of the second or third highest unemployment rate in the nation. Now it is only fifth, which is a good thing. On the other hand,